See, a lot of times we just say, oh, look at them crazy white people. They just hate us or whatever. They just hate us or whatever. You know, it's more than just that. These are people who for centuries have studied you from the top down. And I mean, I'm talking about your body, everything about your body, everything about your mind, and everything even about your spirit. These are demonic people that we're going to be talking about. And they have studied you from top to bottom. Okay, so anyway, so with that being said, what I'll do is let me bring up this slide here. And the first person we're going to be she's going to talk about is this guy by the name of Alfred Kinsey. And as you can guess, you don't have to guess, yes, he was very Jewish. Okay, and I'm going to play this clip from this woman here. And let me get that up for you. And let me see. All right. Let me go ahead and bring this up here. And there'll be times as I'm playing these videos that you'll definitely hear me like stopping here and there. Okay. And that's, you know, I'm just going to have to do that. But the entire videos that I will be showcasing today are already posted here on BondTube. Okay. You'll be able to see that. Watch it on your own time. Okay. We're just going to be highlighting. We're going to be chopping them up a little bit today. And that's it. So this first one, I'm supposed to start at 11:20. All right. So the first symbol you're going to see, you're going to be like, oh, snap. But just keep in mind what I said. Okay. All right. So let me go to 11:20. All right, there you go. All right, so let me get my face up here too. Let's see how I do that. Okay, so you guys can hear me. Okay, so you'll hear my voice. You won't see us, but you'll hear my voice. Okay, let me scroll to 11:20.
That's it.
And I have this woman's name. I texted it to you. Yeah. Nicole will tell you in a moment, but let me go ahead and play it. Okay. We're going to start at 11:20. She's going to talk a little bit about Alfred Kinsey. All right, let's go.
What is the Creator's energy to bring forth life, harnessing that beautiful love-based, life-creating force for evil. And we are participating. And I'm going to show you how. So let me just briefly say, Alfred Kinsey was a sexual psychopath. He believed that the only unnatural sex act is what you cannot perform. Everything's natural, and it's all legitimate and good. That includes bestiality, incest, prostitution, group sex, right? Transvestitism, sadomasochism. All of this is normal and good. It's beneficial. Hey, if it feels good, do it. That's what Kinsey's attitude was. That's what the Rockefellers' attitude is. That's what the Luciferians promote. Am I right? We all know this. So again, Kinsey worked to overthrow all laws prohibiting any of these things. And I want to tell you how disgusting and sick in the mind that this man was. Okay? He took a toothbrush during masturbation, as you can read, and shoved it up into his urethra. And he filmed it for his pornographic collection, which he boasted was the second largest in the world at the Kinsey Institute at the University of Indiana, which still exists to this day. He circumcised himself with a pocket knife. Okay, here's the most psychotic thing I've read about him. He took a rope and tied the rope around his scrotum. He took the other end of the rope, put it up on a pipe over the ceiling, wrapped it around his hand. He was standing on a chair, and then he jumped off the chair. And he hung himself by his balls from the ceiling. Welcome to the world of Rockefeller-funded sex research, my friends. Okay. So he died early, of course, from a disease called orchitis, or I don't know how to say it, which is a lethal infection of his testicles because of all of what he was doing to himself. Obviously, this man was ritually tortured in childhood. Obviously, this is a victim of satanic ritual abuse. There can be no question about this based on his activities. All right, he also believed that pedophilia was good and that the public didn't recognize the benefits of adults having sex with children. How beneficial this is for children. Okay, if society didn't make such a big deal about it, the children would have no problems. It's no problem if you steal their innocence and their purity and try to rape them and steal their life force. That's not a problem. It's good for them, so that they too can grow up to become psychopaths and Luciferians. All right, so his research involved the molestation of children. And as you can see, the bottom two here, he had a 4-year-old that was manipulated, in his words, for 24 hours straight and said to have 26 orgasms in that 24-hour period. 11-month-old said to have 14 orgasms in 38 minutes. All right, let's take a quick look at one of the charts out of Kinsey's books. And look at the age of the children, 5 months. 3 orgasms, we don't know how long that took. And on it goes, folks. A 10-year-old, 24 hours manipulated straight. A 4-year-old, 24 hours manipulated straight. These children obviously were being tied down or restrained in some way so that a pedophile could sexually molest them for Kinsey's research. Let's have a quick look at Kinsey's definition of orgasm in children. Extreme tension with violent convulsions. Sudden heaving and jerking of the whole body. Whole body or parts of it spasmodically twitching. Violent jerking of the penis. Groaning, sobbing, violent cries, sometimes with an abundance of tears with the young children. Extreme trembling, collapse, loss of color, sometimes the fainting of the subject. This is all orgasm in Kinsey's mind. Here's a description. These are descriptions straight out of Kinsey's books. The legs often become rigid with muscles knotted and toes pointed, eyes staring or tightly closed, hands grasping, mouth distorted, sometimes with the tongue protruding. And check this one out. Some boys suffered excruciating pain and may scream if movement is continued. Members of this group fight away from the partner, not the molester, the partner, and they may make violent attempts to avoid climax, although they derive definite pleasure from this. So welcome to the world of Alfred Kinsey and his research team. So this research of Alfred Kinsey's has been used to prove that children are sexually active from birth, and also that they're naturally homosexual. Kinsey was a homosexual.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue to play it here, but I'm reason you may say, whoa, we starting off hard like this. Yes, we are, and this is just the beginning. Because I want you to really understand that how these people. I want you to understand that marching, what we are as a people, black folks, we've been doing to fight against whatever. You trying to deal with that with marching. I'm saying, in other words, you want to say that, oh, the injustice of white people, you're looking at this thing one-dimensionally. Meanwhile, they're taking our children behind the scenes and they're studying you at this level. trying to figure out from birth, and we'll get into that, the what exactly they have been doing to try to figure you out. Because orgasm, it's not only a natural thing, but it's also a spiritual event. And these people know this. And so, and then we're going to talk about in a minute here what they have done with that. Okay. But yeah, we're hearing all the sickness of this man, even though he may have been loony as any tune, but he wasn't that loony, because a lot of his work, all this stuff that she's going through, this whole list she's going through, is being used today. This is why you see today, them trying to push little children. All of a sudden now, all over the place, you got these trannies out here having parties and stuff like that, where they got little children out there and they training them and teaching them, and and all this, having this education in the schools, and be whoever you want to be, and all this other stuff. It all comes. This is the person that we're hearing. Comes from all his work. All his work, and his work is still, like she said, according to him, still at the University of Indiana. It's still there. They're still pulling from it.
Did you tell me, I may be wrong, did you tell me that the modern sex education curriculum or whatever was inspired by some of his work, or did I hear you wrong on that?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Sex education.
It all comes from him. All of it. All of this stuff comes from him. He is acknowledged as the father of all of this stuff. They did a movie with him. There's supposed to have been a movie with what's the dude in Taken, whatever the actor or whatever, and he played him.
Liam Neeson.
And he was this is a man that's revered, and they're still pulling from his stuff. And they're applying it to the shows that you see, the movies, and all this stuff. They're still pulling from it. All right, so we're gonna play a little bit more of this particular clip, and then we're gonna switch it up a little bit. Okay, let's go.
A pedophile and a homosexual. I'll call him a bisexual because he also had sex with women, but he preferred having sex with young boys. All right, so his research is said to have proven that human children have sexual instincts before puberty. Now, I am going to stress that this would distinguish humans from every other mammal. Okay, mammals become sexually active when they are ready to reproduce. And such a difference between mankind and all other mammals cannot be explained through biological evolution.
And I told you I'm going to be stopping and going to whatever. What she said is very, very important. If you look at animals, they don't become animal. When you see a dog or a cat or whatever, or a squirrel or whatever, they don't come out of the womb ready to mingle. You know what I'm saying? They don't come out like that. They live their life. They enjoy. You see, if you go on YouTube, you see animals playing. They had that full time of playing. Like, I love looking at videos of like little baby goats and sheep and all that. They just be practicing how to jump up and down and, and just be having a good old time. And that's animals. They do that. Well, likewise with us, we're not animals, but likewise with children, when we come out of the womb, sex is the furthest thing from your mind. You ain't thinking nothing like that. And then once you're able to figure things out, the first thing you want to do after you eat and all of that, you want to play. But what we're going to be getting into, and what she's talking about here, this is just the front door, ladies and gentlemen, is that the moment that you are birthed, the first thing they come after there are things that are done to your body where they immediately want to activate that sexual part of you. That's unnatural. And by doing that, it has a direct impact on you. It goes with you for a good part of your life. All right, let's go.
All right, the fact that we believe that we should be having sex without reproduction, and that that's beneficial in the way the Creator designed us to do it, cannot be explained through biological evolution, but it can be explained through mind control. So what they wanted was to legitimize pedophilia and get people to believe that children can benefit from sex with adults. what they wanted, because again, this is a Luciferian agenda. For those who don't have a clarity about what that is, that means there is a rebellion against the Creator. There is a rebellion against the Creator's design. And so what we want to do is destroy the natural order if we're Luciferian. We want to destroy the Creator's design. We want to mock it at every opportunity we can get. And especially the most sacred aspects of it, which involve the creation of life, the renewal and regeneration of life. All right, so they wanted to convince Americans, and they have, that physical pleasure is what matters. It's what it's all about.
Sorry, okay. So I think that's the first clip I wanted to show you. Now we're going to transition to, you can't see the slide, but I can. You'll see the slide, but basically the slide is more so for me. We're going to transition a little bit. Now we're going to get into, because she was continuing in this discussion, then she transitioned to pornography and the impact of pornography. Okay, so the first clip that you're going to see, let me scroll on here to 30. Yeah, I will. Let's see. Yeah, I just wanted to, so that's the slide there. It's a satanic, pornography is a satanic ritual. Make no mistake about it. It is a satanic ritual. Mm-hmm. And she is going to break it down. Many of us, we already know, we're very aware of some aspects of this. What she's going to be getting into is what it does from a neurological perspective. We're going to get into that and what it does, the imprinting and all of that. And so she's going to talk about that. Okay, so let me bring this video back up here, and I'm going to scroll to the 30-minute mark here. Hold on.
Now, here's what people most need to know, in addition to the sodomy piece. Please forgive me for how painful this is. I wish I could present this in a way that would not be painful. I haven't found a way to do it. So the porn industry is replete with demonic influences, and I want to stress, I'm in the middle of writing my book about how to have an ecstatic, love-filled birth, and I realize you cannot have an ecstatic, love-filled birth if you've had a conception that's based on porn. We got to get rid of these pornographic influence in our lives. And I start researching, and all these people who are in the industry are coming out and saying things like this. I'm not exaggerating by stating that many Los Angeles porn industry professionals are Satanists and have the intention of destroying those who believe in God. Another one says, in porn, the producers and the film editors who edit the final film for the public cast spells into the final cuts of the film, and these spells are to cast demons into the films so that when you watch the films, these demons can influence your lives. Here we have a survivor of satanic ritual abuse, Kurt Barker, whose books I'm sharing at my table. I encourage people to please look at his work. Okay? Kurt was raised, by the way, in a satanic cult to be Kathy. Every time he was with the Luciferian cult, he had to dress as a girl, present himself as a girl. He was involved, had to do child pornography and sexually service these psychopaths while he was dressed as a girl because they get off on this kind of shit. This is the agenda of transgenderism, folks, right, is to separate the children from their core personalities and create alter personalities that will be in service to these psychopaths. There's nothing normal about wanting to have surgical alteration of your genitals, nor is it normal for these psychopath doctors to be strapping babies to boards and cutting off the most sensitive part of their penises. This is all connected. Every aspect of this is part of the Luciferian design. Kurt Barker says, when Bob and other Satanists were creating child pornography and other forms of pornography as well, they considered that what they were doing was a magical ritual. Aleister Crowley called it sex magic. They considered the creation of pornography to literally be a satanic ritual in which Satan would give them power in the world. Because that's what pornography is. It is satanic. It is the satanic takeover of human sexuality. Pornography is created with an intention, and that intention is Luciferian manipulation of the psyche of the viewer. Pornography can be compared to the use of voodoo dolls, to establishing a psychic connection with the viewers, to demonically influence them, to block their connection with the real creator. And this is from somebody else entirely. The porn industry is well aware and use the demonic side to infiltrate porn. Whether the actors are aware or not, many orgy scenes are in fact rituals. This is what they do, right? But you will never see when the actors and directors meet at 6 a.m. in the morning, drink their potions, and cast their spells before they start recording for the public. The use of pornography provides a direct gateway for demonic influence, and every video or website opens another door. When a person uses pornography, he is allowing for the demonic forces which control the porn industry to infiltrate his life and his home. What we're talking about here is spiritual bondage. Whenever a person watches pornography, a person is actually tapping in to the demonic realm. In addition to defiling a person, pornography brings a person under the influence and even control of the demonic entities that control it. So every time you are impulse to look at pornography after this, I'm going to encourage you to remember this talk and remember that these films contain demonic influences intended to affect our lives. We're bringing this influence into our bedrooms, into our relationships, and into the conception of our children. And what kind of children do you think we'll be calling in? If, while we're having sex, we have visions of incubi and succubi that we've seen in pornography films, entering into our sexual activity. And what kind of consciousness will the children have if they're conceived in this kind of an energy? That's not a coding for love, folks. That's a coding for love's opposite, that our children will be imprinted with. And we have got to be aware of what this is and protect ourselves and our children.
Okay, so she's going to get now into imprinting and what exactly that is, and I'm going to stop again on that. But what she said, like I said, we're just going to keep it 100. So for those, even for married couples, when you are with your spouse and you are, making love or whatever, if you are imagining someone else in the room or maybe imagining that person you wish you had or whatever, this is a spiritual moment that's taking place. It's not just a natural one. It's also very spiritual. And when you are imagining someone else in that room, that is also can be considered a familiar spirit. And you are welcoming that into something that is supposed to be for you and your spouse. That's it. You're welcoming spirits. And people do this all the time and they think it's normal. And it's not. It shouldn't be normal. But sadly, in many cases, it is. But yeah, we'll be getting into this a little bit more. So now she's going to talk about imprinting. I'm going to let her start off the discussion on that, and then we'll be stopping again on that, okay? All right, let's go.
All right, so the demonic influence, I'm asking the question, is this why it's so addictive? There's more going on. All right, but one person said pornography is more addicted than crack cocaine because you can get the crack cocaine out of your body, but you can't get the images out of your mind. Right? They stay with you. They influence you. They get wired into your brain. It's called imprinting. And the more you masturbate to these images, right, the stronger these neurological highways become. You know the expression, neurons that fire together, wire together? All right, when you create a neurological highway, looking at a screen and masturbating over and over and over again, you are changing the structure of your brain, literally. You're changing the brain chemistry and rewiring your circuitry to get off from masturbating to a screen, but certainly not to make a connection in intimacy or love. Very different things. Very, very different things.
Yeah, so I want to make sure you catch that. Anybody, and that's a male or a female, when you engage in masturbation, you are actually taking part in, like she said, is you're literally are rewiring your brain and you're imprinting. And when you are masturbating and you're looking at things on the screen, actions, people, whatever on the screen, you are actually taking that image and you're actually it's almost as if you're soldering it to your brain, to your thoughts. That's why people who have spent years looking at pornography, it takes a while for it to flush out of their system. And why? Because you have meditated on this stuff over and over and over and over again until literally it has made a physical imprint on your brain, on your thoughts and everything. So with masturbation is the spiritual connection, if you will. When you are using your hands on your genital area, that what the Most High has blessed you with down there is a spiritual port, if you will, and when you are playing around with that thing, you are actually using that as a way of, it's literally like it's almost like a device, if you will. And some people use devices, as a way to make those images stay in the structure of your brain. In the mind of your mindset of your brain. That's how powerful this thing is that the Most High has given for the men, what he's given us, and for the women, what he's given you as well. And they've even created things such as, we could talk about vibrators. I want to, one day we'll talk about that maybe next week, who invented that and all of that. And when you're using even those devices, you think it's just you and that's it. No, you're also the person and the spirit that they had. You're actually having intercourse with that person, the makers of that. It ain't just you. It's never just you. The moment you go into orgasm, it's like it's that one moment in time. It's like you're open up. Your spirit is open up, and whatever spirits have been around you, those demonic spirits, it's a time where they can you hear the expression, fools rush in. Well, demons rush in. That's why you're never meant to have this by yourself. Okay. Anyway, let me go back. Well, Nicole wanted to chime in. Go ahead.
Let me just say this regarding the brain. There's something called neuroplasticity. In neuroplasticity, what happens is basically the neurons in your brain can rewire, all right, based on experiences, moments, things that you think, things that you experience, all right, emotions and things of that nature. So what she was saying in this clip is that when you are partaking in pornography and there's masturbation connected to it, you are literally wiring your brain to think, feel, your outlook. You're wiring it towards lust You're wiring it towards what you can get. You're not wiring it towards love and towards, what love is supposed to be within the confines of matrimony, so to speak. You're not. And so, and that might seem like, duh, but no. The more you do it, it's like, they're like highways. That path that you just created when you were watching pornography coupled with masturbation, you created a little side road. The more you do it, it becomes a lane. The more you do it, it becomes a boulevard or whatever. The more you do it, it becomes a 2-lane, 3-lane, 4-way highway. And before you know it, you created a turnpike literally in your brain. Just think about the passageway widening and becoming stronger. And that's what happens. So when you're habitually doing these things, you've created a pathway so large in your brain that when it's time to love someone, all you can do is lust. When it's time to, meet your partner for life, your soulmate, the one that the Most High set apart for you, when it's time to finally come together, you can't think right, because you've literally created this highway that you are trying to get off of, but you're just on, because again, through habit. But it's called neuroplasticity for a reason, right? Because you can also train it towards righteousness and towards love and towards holiness, right? You can do that. You can do that, right? And again, he is the renewer of our minds. So he's letting us know right there that he can absolutely renew the mind. But I'm just giving you some explanations behind why people kind of get affixed in their way of thinking. There's real chemistry happening in the brain. So yeah.
All right, so let's go. She's now going to talk about the impact of porn on the brain. And okay, so let's jump to that and let's go.
Let me quickly say this. Okay, porn addiction causes brain damage. How is that? There's erototoxins, this is a new word in the scientific community, get released into the bloodstream while viewing pornography that alter brain chemistry and cause progressive brain damage. The frontal lobes atrophy or shrink. They call this hypotrophy. By the way, the frontal lobes are the part of our brain that connect us directly with the divine mind. They're not going to have any of that. They're going to be attacking this part of our brain every chance that they get. And they do it with expert skill. All right, what that part of our brain also does, it says, if I'm here and I'm arguing with you, the part of my brain, the frontal lobes, would say, is this an appropriate time for me to get violent? Am I in danger? Do I need to, get violent and protect myself? All right, but when your frontal lobes are shrunk, there's going to be no control. Impulse control is way less. So you can get violent very quickly, right? Or you can have no control over whether you're watching pornography. And I started to think, when I heard the word hypofrontality, where had I heard that before? In my book,
Listen
Birth
now.
Trauma and the Dark Side of Modern Medicine, which I have out here. Please come and buy my book. I quote a Jewish French intellectual who is talking about what's going on with the Jews. What's going on here? Okay? What he says is this about circumcision. Circumcision brings about a hypertrophy, same language, of the organ of moral sense. We have known for 40 years that this gland is atrophied among insane people. It is hypertrophied with the Jews. Circumcision affects the Jewish psyche and now the American psyche, because the Jewish takeover of the American medical system meant that circumcision is now mainstreamed. And let me say this straight out, okay? With all love in my heart, for people who were raised in this cult called Judaism, Judaism is a Luciferian cult. This is what it is. They are ritually torturing infants. 50,000 chickens were sacrificed in New York City last September. So animal sacrifice is still alive and well in this, what we call religion. But this is a cult that is hurting children, hurting animals, hurting our world. And if you identify with this cult tribally, I'm going to encourage you, just like any other survivor of satanic ritual abuse, to get some healing and separate yourself from this tribal identity.
We've been saying this, and there's a lot I could say on this part here, but I will say what's immediately on my mind right now. You know, when she talked about the sacrifice of chickens, and we've talked about this as well. If we pointed this stuff out, I said, no, this is a demonic ritual. We pointed this stuff out, and we have, what was his name? Benaiah Israel. He actually had posted on YouTube and was saying that because they weren't just doing this in New York. They were actually doing this all the way in Spain and Portugal. These people that we're talking about. And what he said was that, again, he gets these people, they get little snippets of history from different people. They piece it together. It's like Build-A-Bear culture. That's what this is. And was saying, see, you know, there are people because they love them some chicken. They love some chicken. And I'm sitting up here scratching my head and I'm watching the people and they just like, yeah, I know. That's right. They are people. Yeah, that's right. You know, we love some chicken and all this. And I'm like, do y'all not understand why they were doing that? Number one, they ain't our people that you're chasing after. So that's number one right there. But also, as far as what this is concerned, what she mentioned about the chicken, that's a ritual demonic. They won't say it's demonic, but it is sacrifice. And this woman here is telling you, if you got anything, if you're connected to Judaism at all, at any length, anything, I don't care if it's down to, I'm not in Judaism. I call myself a Hebrew. That's Judaism. Shalom, everybody. That's Judaism. Shabbat, everybody. Shabbat. That's Judaism. Any branch, any part of it, any leaf, it's all connected. I want to be very clear. So that way, when you're done listening today, there's no question. There's not going to be any question. Because I told you, right now, we're still at the front door. But no. Actually, we're not in the front door. Now we done passed the front door and we're about to we all about to sit down in a moment, and we're all about to sit down because when you hear the next part of what these people have done, you'll see exactly where I'm coming from and what I'm talking about here. Let me just scroll on here. Let me see. She's at 44. Okay, I'll just jump to 53 here. Because she's getting into another topic that we're going to talk about, and I might come back to that. So let me go back here to 53 here. I'm just going to tell you this here. I'm just going to stop it there. But this is to show you just how wicked these people are. And what you're seeing on your screen right now, just how wicked these people are. You got brothels in Germany where they're tying up little dogs, and you as a man or whatever, you can go in and just have your way with them.
That's disgusting.
These are Jewish people.
That's disgusting.
They all controlled all this stuff. Why do you think we spent so much time talking about who these people are? And then it goes on. And like I said, let me just skip over that. Let me see. Again, she's blocking stuff out here. We're at 54. 53. What you just saw there, these were images, cartoons that were like in Playboy magazine or whatever. And what you're looking at right now is a man. He got two women. He got two little girls tied up, and he's like writing in his book, like, okay, I'm doing the Kinsey thing. Like, okay, how many times did they go on orgasm and all this other stuff? This is entertainment. This is, again, this is all in that world. For many of you, you've never peeped or looked into this world. I'm telling you, this is what these people do. And they put it all under the umbrella of Judaism, Hebrewism. So let me go ahead. Now she's going to talk about neurologically what happens to you, I believe, in sodomy. Now, this is a very important topic here. Because like I said, we can only just, all we're doing is tip, tip, tip. That's all we can do because it's so much.
Yeah. But
for some of you, you have been touched by this thing. And like I said, thankfully, look, at the end of this all, after, once we finish this series, we want to have a time where we are really praying for our people.
Yeah.
But she's going to explain to you neurologically what happens, what takes place when someone is sodomized. It's not just an act. There's more to it. All right, so let me go ahead and play this.
The porn industry. Let me quote this amazing woman, Dr. Judith Reisman, who is also Jewish, okay? So we have good people in the Jewish community doing very important work, and I encourage more of it. She says, you cannot do the kind of programming of people's brains, minds, memories, and bodies, because the connection between the brain goes all the way down through the eyes. It comes in, right? The visual comes in, right down the spinal cord to the genitals. It travels all the way. She says it much more eloquently than I did. Right? Way down from the retina, all the way down the central nervous system and into the genitals. You can't show people those kinds of pictures and arouse them that way and not think they're going to act out, either positively on somebody who agrees or negatively on somebody who doesn't agree. That's what's going to happen. And you simply cannot do that to billions of people at one time, to masses of the population, and certainly not to young children. I don't know if you could see this one, but there's a pedophile in the bushes here with a sign that says sex education. Bob, there was a request for me to go overtime. How do you feel about that?
You can have about 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
Hold on, y'all. Let me make sure I get to the right point here. She's going to... let me see. Hold on. Did I miss it?
You skipped the sodomy slide early when you were trying to get here. I saw you go past it earlier on.
Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to get there.
Oh, this one doesn't have the time on it.
Hold on.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, it'll come up. Hold on. All right, here we go. All right, so let me scroll back a little bit more. Okay, here we go. All right. Let me go back here this way. Okay, here we go. I'll just start it from here.
Now here's what's happening. Okay, the girls in this age group who are now sexting, sending naked pictures of themselves to other boys because pornography permeates the culture, their culture. They're being coerced into engaging in sexual acts that they're not comfortable with by their boyfriends who have seen these, perverse sexual acts in pornography. So the boys are wanting to replay what they've seen because they think it's normal. This is what they're growing up with. This is what they're being fed, is the pornographic view of human sexuality. in which anal sex is a huge trend. Now, let me go into this topic very deeply, because there is so many survivors now of satanic ritual abuse coming forward and talking about and revealing what's really going on with this stuff. So here we're being told by a survivor, her name is Marion Knox, that sodomy is the foundation of the satanic order, that it's called the Key of David by the Rothschild Illuminati, that it's Satan's sex, or Satan's new birth of a child. She says the Illuminati is Lucifer's church, the mystical body of Satan, and sodomy is like being born again into the mystical body of Satan. It's the initiation into the light of Lucifer that's achieved by sodomy of a 3-year-old. Now check this out. These are all her words, okay? The initiation of the 3-year-old is the beginning requirement of someday rising up into the ranks of a group that is considered to be the Illuminati. A lot of people think of the Illuminati as being a political group, but in another sense, it's a brotherhood of sodomites. That's like a family. Sodomites feel a family bond, whether they're related or not. She also says this: sodomy attacks the nerves at the base of the spine. It causes something neurological to happen within the brain. So it changes the way the mind works, especially when you get the 3-year-olds. And it affects the way the person thinks, like nothing else will. For a person to be able to develop multiple personalities, they would have to be sodomized between the ages of 2 and 4. Let that register.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this side again. I know she read it, but we're going to, because like I said again, we're going to take our time with this. The impact of sodomy. And I want, especially for those of you who have been impacted by this, you know, for years, you may have been beating yourself up over some things that you may be dealing with. And this is why, like I said, all of this that we're talking about today, we're getting to the root of it. Okay. And this will hopefully bring some clarity as to why you may have been wrestling with some of the things you've been wrestling with. These are things that had happened to you and you had no control over. All right, so let's go. It says attacks the nerves at the base of the spine. Now, if you have paid attention, you know, over the weeks, I've been showing you this, was it the Kabbalah? They have like this whole tree of life thing, right? And when you look at the symbol, it's like a long stick, and then it has like all these different names, Elohim and all these other Hebrew God names and stuff on there, right? And it has all this stuff on there, but they're also tied to different, what they call chakras. Okay. And, but that long thing in the middle, they have like a snake going around it. Right. Well, what that mainly represents is a person's spine. Okay. So your spine, it has a lot of nerves going through it. It's very important. And it's also very spiritual as well. We're spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings. So it says attacks the nerves at the base of the spine. So when this sodomy thing, when it's talked about this in the Bible, when it's talked about in the Bible about, you know, removing ourselves from the sodomites, these Sodom and Gomorrah, these are practitioners of witchcraft to a degree where they understood when we put our thing up your behind, there's actually a programming that's taking place. And it's a demonic one. All right, so let's go. And so it says causes something neurological to happen within the brain. It changes the way the mind works. Affects the person's mind in a way that nothing else will. Nothing. For a person to be able to develop multiple personalities, like we see today, and it's like, I'm a him, her, and I'm a she, he, and I'm this or that or whatever. It says here, they would have to be sodomized between the ages of 2 and 4. A lot of this that we're seeing are children that were touched by some stank uncles and some other people, fathers and stuff that had touched these children and have programmed these children. And they're now living in a society where instead of them being encouraged to get help and get healed and get delivered, they're being encouraged to be you and just continue to be you. So sodomy is literally a reprogramming of a person themselves. It's a reprogramming. That's what's taking place. All right, let's go.
This is more of her words. Sodomy has a spiritual component in it that is far more sinister than anybody recognizes. It is the most underrated evil power to the general public. But to the people who are in the know, this is the ultimate rebellion against God. This is what they hope to use to gain the whole human race for their side and to defeat God himself. Now let me just put this in my own words, okay? When you take your penis, this amazing life-creating organ, and you put it where excrement comes out, instead of into the orifice in which life can be created, you are saying, fuck you to the Creator. Your life-creating program means nothing to me. My sexuality is now about excrement so that I can align myself with the Luciferian world. And hey, folks, I grew up with pornography too. Okay, my first marriage, I allowed my husband to penetrate me anally because I thought that's normal. All right, that's what they do in pornography. Now I'm just absolutely horrified at what I have allowed happen to my body and to my soul through my own sexual behavior, which has been conditioned by these Luciferian forces. And it's not easy taking it back. Here's Hugh Hefner himself, right? The origins of pornography, saying, it is a statement of rebellion without question.
Okay, so that's all the clips there. Someone was asking, where can I find this documentary? It's right here on BondTube. I just uploaded it yesterday. Her name is Janice Barcelo. Janice Barcelo. All you got to do is type that in, and it should come right up. Janice, Jeanice Barcelo, Barcelo. All right, it's everything I'm showing you. If it's pulling from a documentary, it's on here on BondTube. If it's not, it'll be on there tonight. All right, you ain't got to go anywhere else. I'm sure you'll find it on other platforms, but I definitely wanted to make sure it was going to be on our platform, so make it a lot easier for people to find it. I want to touch on something she said that's a very, very important thing. Because see, now when you start messing with children, when you start messing with people's lives like this, see, I'm just going to tell you. And then wherever it falls, so be it. For you women, I want you to listen to me. For some of you who are married to men who make you perform certain acts, such as what she mentioned here in the bedroom, you do not have to submit yourself to that. Let me be very clear. You do not have to submit yourself to that. This woman has actually laid out and explained to you exactly what's going on. If your husband, I don't care, because like I said, you got folks who are quote unquote Hebrew, Christian, or whatever, and they tell their wives, listen, you're supposed to do what I tell you to do. Let me tell you, be very blunt. You better get the hell up out of there. And you need to find some help real quick. Because that is straight up rape. And you don't need to play any part of that. Because he may feel good at the moment, but what's actually happening is there's spiritually, there's something opening up in you. You're being violated for a moment of his pleasure. Now, typically, like I said, when it comes to people's marriages and stuff like that, and certainly when it comes to your, hey, you do you. You know what I'm saying? we ain't gonna be doing no seminar like, okay, how you please your spouse and all this stuff. We ain't doing none of that, okay? And no, we ain't gonna never do that, okay? But when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm telling you, women, married women, you do not, under no circumstance, have to submit yourself to that, nor should you. Because a lot of times you may be dealing with a man who just been gassing himself up with a bunch of pornography, and now he wants to come to you, and because you're the first target, the legal target that he can come to and exercise his demons in you. So no, you do not, under no circumstance, I'm telling you, no, you need to get up and you need to find some help quick. You need to talk to somebody. Don't be suffering in silence and sitting up. Well, I don't want to say anything. I was uncomfortable. Listen, I need to talk to someone that's a Christian. I need to talk to a Hebrew. Honey, you better find whomever is very qualified and that you can talk to. Listen, you can email us. We'll find someone for you. But I'm telling you, I don't want any of our sisters out here, if you're in that situation, to be sitting up here suffering like that, because that's what it is. You are a wife. You ain't supposed to be called. You ain't called to do that. You ain't called to have your butthole basically penetrated like that. He gave that to you for one reason. He gave us all one for one reason only, and that is to expel excrement, not for sexual pleasure. That is sick. That is disgusting. And on every scientific basis, it's the most unhealthy thing anybody could do. I go on social media. I was, again, on Twitter. You never have control on sometimes what comes up on your timeline, but it comes up, and it got some of our people getting into this stuff where they just showcasing it all on social media. Young girl, like I said, we talking plain here. Had the man, they call it eating behind, basically, where you're literally are putting your mouth on somebody's rectum. I'm telling you right now, you better not do that. You better not engage in that. That is the most craziest thing you can do, even from a medical perspective. From a medical perspective. Do you know how many things are coming out of your butthole that you don't realize is coming out?
That's it.
And if it stayed in your body, it will kill you. And yet they want to make that's something that's sexy. That is not sex. That's demonic. Like I saw, they got this thing now. There's a trend, again, being blunt here. There's another trend that they got going on right now that I see. I was like, what, these people, what are they even? They're not thinking. If you engage in an oral sex, and basically a woman engaging in oral sex with a man, and then you know what happens, he climaxes or whatever. There's this thing where it goes all on you. They have it go all in your face. That's supposed to be like a turn on. And so now they have, I've seen this happen up twice. Again, I ain't looking for this crap. I guess it's like mainstream because it shows up. I'm like, where the heck, who what? And it's a girl, she's walking down the street, got the stuff on her face, and she up here like, you know, and like it's funny or something like that. And I'm sitting up here, and the people on the street like looking like, what are you thinking?
Jeez, goodness.
This is how, you may not be there.
What in the world?
But I'm going to tell you right now, someone you know is. And I'm talking specifically for those who are married. Some of y'all may have that kind of, have that kind of relationship. I'm telling you right now, don't do that. Do not do that. That's dangerous. I mean, we got the spiritual part of it. I mean, we got that down, right? The spiritual side of it. But I'm talking even if I can't convince you even on the spiritual side, I'm saying even in the natural, do not do that. I don't care if it's in marriage or not. And I'm telling you, let me step up to the brother that would tell you to do that. I'll do it. I ain't got no problem doing that. And yes, I would call if I had to get whatever. I'm telling you, you do not subject sisters to that kind of foolishness at all. What they're getting that from, that is all witchcraft. That's witchcraft. Yeah. That's demonic.
It's true.
That's demonic. The Most High didn't create the face of the first woman to be like that. What?
And don't allow anybody to use Hebrews 13:4 on you either and say, well, the marriage bed is undefiled. The marriage bed is undefiled. The text may say that the marriage bed is undefiled, but it doesn't say that the marriage bed is dysfunctional. So to put a penis in an anus is dysfunction. It wasn't meant for that. It wasn't built for that. And it causes, as we've been talking about, it causes harm, definitive harm in your brain. What in the absolute world? Likewise, your mouth on the genitals, out of function, but it is a clear sign of the enemy because he defiles. So my mouth, which is meant to speak blessing, that sweet water is meant to come out of, that I'm meant to prophesy goodness. I'm supposed to speak and break chains off of people. I'm supposed to speak and set the captives free. That mouth is on a part of the body that waste comes out of. So all of this anus activity and all, again, we could talk about it spiritually, but even just looking at it medically, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And like you say, it's rooted really in Satanism.
It's rooted in that.
It's rooted in Satanism, period. It just is. It just is. Anything that defiles, takes something that's righteous, takes it out of its function and defiles it. It's just a watermark of the devil. It's a watermark of Satan. That's what he does. It's what he does. And something that was meant to be whole and complete in its proper and natural order of things, intercourse in its natural function, it's complete. It's complete. And so, anyway, I'm not going to get on about that because I know you have things you want to talk about. I'll just leave it at that.
Anyway, so you see this. So we just talked about this, a psychological impact of sodomy. We got a lot of our young ladies. We got a lot of our young men, out here that have been suffering in silence. And you got people who are, you may be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s and stuff. And so what you've heard so far, there are things that have been programmed in you that it happened all the way back then. And for years, for some of you, you have been literally beating yourself up because you think it's just me. I don't know. Now, again, we're individuals. There are still choices. We have to give account for the choices that we make ultimately. However, with that being said, what has caused us to kind of go off kilter, so to speak, in the beginning? What caused that in the beginning? We have to go back, and for some people, it was events like this that have taken place, unfortunately, from someone that did something to you. Like I said, men, young men and women. And these are most deep emotional scars, and this is why you see much of the dysfunction amongst our people, and now as we're transitioning here, so we talked about pornography, right? We talked about the impact and all that other stuff here. And if you've been following us, we've been emphasizing over and over again, who are the ones that brought pornography over here to this country in the first place? It was the Jewish people. And they very proudly say this. They're very proud of it. And it's something else that the Jewish people have done. And this one is going to target more so for our brothers. So definitely going to need you to listen up. But we're going to listen. Let me get to the scripture first, okay? We're still in Genesis. I'll tell you, maybe that'll be our Bible. I'm going to get a Bible and it just have Genesis 1 in it. That's it. Because it's saying like we just can never get out of Genesis 1. But anyway, let's read this.
That's good.
Okay, let's read it. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. Let me read that again. So God created man in his own image. So we're literally a copy of what he looks like. Let me say that again. We are literally a copy of what he looks like. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. You know what's very interesting? What's interesting about this, when you look at people, a lot of people don't look alike, do they? But yet we were created in his image. How does that work? So just the magnificence of who he is, we'll be able to, when the day comes when we're able to see him face to face, we'll be able to see, hey, he looks kind of like me. Then someone else will be like, hey, he looks kind of like me. Then someone else will be, but we all look at each other individually. We look different. That's just the wonder of the magnificence of who he is. Isn't that something? So anyway, verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the air, fish of the air, okay, flying fish, fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. All right. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And then this last part, which is very important, most important for what we're talking about. And God saw everything that he had made, including man and woman. And behold, it was very good. Everything he made. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. You don't read anything in here at all where he said he made this part, but there's some of that over there he wasn't too proud of. Everything he made, he said it was good. All right. Now let's get to more specifics. We're gonna zoom this lens in a little bit more here. Now we're in Genesis chapter 17, verse 10 to 14. And this is the Most High. He's speaking to, I believe, Abram. Okay, and let's see. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he shall, and he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in a house or brought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. And then he goes on and talks about how, yes, you need to be circumcised. Now, remember, family, this is why we've spent weeks on this. When we talked about those who put together the Bible. Again, let's start from the top. Is there truth in the Bible? Absolutely. There is absolute truth in the Bible. That's what we firmly believe. And that has not changed. But what we also know is that what we call and know as the Bible has been processed through the hands of very wicked people. And so we've taken a deeper look at the people on the Catholic side of the fence who've helped put the Bible together. And we've also looked at the Jewish side of the fence, those people who helped put the Bible together. And there are things that they have added in the Bible, and there are things that they have taken out of the Bible. And for that, can be a big of a challenge to many people who firmly believe that every word that's in the book that they call the Bible, you can't even question it. You can't do anything at all because it fell out of the sky and it fell into your lap You didn't even go to the Christian bookstore. It just fell in your lap, and it's holy. It's all of it is. No, it's not. There are things that they have polluted and added in there. And this is why, again, Isaiah told us that we have to be filled with his spirit, because it's his spirit that's going to lead us and guide us into all truth. It's not going to lead us to a Bible. It's not going to lead us to your favorite translation. It's going to lead us to truth. And that's what we want. That's ultimately our goal, is to be led to truth and by truth. Do you understand? That's the difference. Okay. Now, so this is supposedly what we, according to this, is that the Most High established a covenant, and he said, listen, Abram, if you want to prove your loyalty to me, and I'm paraphrasing, you're going to have to circumcise the foreskin. You're going to have to cut off part of your penis in order to that I know that, okay, yeah, you with me. And that is another scripture said this will be a sign, basically, that shows that you guys are a separate people. You're separate from everyone else. Now, if you look at history, especially during that time and going backwards, circumcision was not something that was just for Israel. Wasn't the only country or the only nation of people that practiced circumcision. Here you have some nasty pictures from Egypt, Greece, and Rome. These are circumcised penises. And yes, we're going to see some pictures of some penises. There will be drawings. Okay. Try to make sure of that. But trust me, what you're looking at are circumcised penises. These are other places that practice circumcision. Again, what we've been told is a sign that we're separate, that we're a holy people. That's what we've been told. But if that's the case, then why Egypt practicing it? Why is Greece practicing it? Why is Rome practicing it? Something ain't adding up here. Something is not adding up here, ladies and gentlemen. It's not adding up. Let me get these stank things off of here. All right. Now, even in the United States. Oh, let me go back. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me just show this. So what you're looking at is a map here. I got two maps, and they both kind of confirm the same thing. The United States, as it stands right now, has one of the highest rates in the world when it comes to circumcision. United States and Canada, as you can see. And contrastly, when you look in South America and the Caribbean, it's quite low. Then when you look in Europe, surprisingly, I was surprised, it's actually pretty low in Europe. Very white Europe. And you start going into Africa and you start going into that region, it's very high. Now, this is very interesting. This is very, very interesting. And we're going to talk more about this. Okay. So this is the same thing, same map. I mean, it's a different map, but it's giving you kind of numbers here. Very high. USA, it's 71%. You get into the African nations, it's extremely high. 99%, 95%, 98%. Let me just say this to you as we move on. Satan only attacks what's a threat to him. Okay? So we'll start off with that. Okay, so.
And that's as of 2016.
This is as of 2016. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now this is picture time, okay? So what you're looking at right now is on the left-hand side, you see a picture of a penis that is on the far left-hand side is a penis that has not been circumcised. That's what the way the Most High designed our penises to look like. It's supposed to look like this. With circumcision, however, you see right in the middle still on the left-hand side, this is what circumcision has done. Cuts that off. Okay. And so they're just showing you just a very simple procedure. And we're going to talk about procedures on what happens. They basically pull off this part here, that's on the far left-hand side, that cover. They pull it off and they sew it. This is one procedure, okay, what they do.
So they uncover the head.
They uncover the head. Okay. All right. So let's go to, this is another thing that I found to be quite interesting. My wife found this. This is reportedly, this is what's practiced, from ancient times, I guess, in Australia amongst the Aboriginals, something they used to tell their children. All right. When it came to circumcision. Now, the Aboriginals, they darker, like talking about white folk, the darker folk. All right. So let's go. It says in myth, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, swallows the Wawilak sisters and their 2 sons, thereby preventing them from carrying out the intended circumcision for the boys. It says Elkin, while in the relevant Kanapi, writes, the initiates are symbolically swallowed by this god. Okay, that's what it is. And I'm going to tell you what that god is. In the Yolungu version of these rites, the little boys who are to be circumcised are told by their fathers and the other older men, the great father snake smells your foreskin. He's calling for it. Now, if you dig into this a little bit more, which we're not going to really get into, the father snake that they're referring to is one that has a lot of colors and it's feathered. It's a feathered colored snake. Haven't we heard of that before? Nakash, Messiah, remember? Isn't it interesting how all of this comes right back? Quite interesting. All right, so let's go to here. Okay. Now, this is the part where you're really going to have to hold on to your seats because, like I said, we're just going to have to keep it 100% here. Okay. And so, in short, I'll just tell you this. So what you're looking at right now on the screen, of course, are pictures of little boys that are they're not happy. They're in very extreme pain. Okay. And then on the right hand side, what you see here is the table that is typically used to strap down babies as they're being circumcised. Okay. We're going to get into this part here. Like I said, this part here is going to be one that is going to be a bit challenging to watch some of this stuff here. I mean, I'll let you know when, okay? But some of this is going to be very challenging. But I will say this, though. I know for some of you, it may be a bit of a wrestle right now mentally, when you go to scripture and you're saying, well, wait a minute, all these scriptures talk about the importance of being circumcised. But now what we're going to do is we're going to learn from a medical standpoint of just how dangerous this is. Okay. And so we're going to play some video clips here. And you'll get to hear really what goes on here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, I think I got everything. And now I need to find that video. And I already got my time markers here. So just give me a moment here. And then we're going to get into it. Okay. Now we're going to, as far as the scriptures are concerned, as far as all the ones that are dealing with circumcision, that's why I said there's no way in the world we'll be able to handle all of that in one day. There's no way in the world. But, we are going to have a broadcast where we are going to look at all of those scriptures, point by point. And we're going to look at these things very closely. Okay. So I just want to be aware of that. We're not going to just gloss over that. Okay, so let me get this here. So let's start with, and I see my time. I understand if you got to go, I do understand, but the video will be available, as you know, for those of you who are brand new, we'll have the video up and you'll be able to see it later on. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to put on this video here. You're going to see me swiping a little bit and let's go. So this first clip is going to be 17 minutes long. Okay. And so, yeah, I'll just go ahead and play it.
Circumcision is the most common surgery in America. Whether or not you choose to learn about it, it's there, directly impacting the majority of American men in the most intimate way possible.
Circumcision is the absolute, most unbelievable, disgusting attack that we could ever conceive of. Strapping an infant to a torture board, literally strapping his arms and his legs to a torture board so that all he can do is move his head, sometimes shoving a pacifier in his mouth so he's choking on his screams while you systematically jam a sharp metal instrument into his penis, sticking it in between the foreskin, which is attached to the glands, jamming it in there, and then ripping the foreskin off of the glands of the penis without anesthetic. 96% of the time, the babies are given nothing.
Many Americans have never taken the time to think deeply about circumcision. Circumcision is the surgical removal of the foreskin, the foremost part of the male penis. And in America, it is typically performed on infants within the first few days of life. No other industrialized country routinely practices non-religious infant circumcision other than America. Isn't it odd that Americans have never had a national conversation about one of the central practices of their culture, a practice which affects so many on such a personal level?
Now, so I'm arguing that it's this big thing and that we don't talk about it a lot. So I have to sort of explain why I think that. So I believe the discourse that we have in our culture about circumcision is one that's used to conceal what the nature of the process is. So you may have heard things like, well, it makes the penis cleaner or something like that. You may have heard things like, everyone does it, I'm circumcised and I'm fine. It's just a little snip, or it removes a useless flap of skin, this sort of trivializing language. You may have heard all these things. What I'm asking you to do right now is to set all that aside, all that massive experience in your minds, and to try and come at it from a fresh angle where these sort of illogical arguments or support for it are not part of where you're thinking. I'm going to propose that circumcision is this cyclical process in our culture where we do it to children, they grow up, they become adult survivors, some of those people become parents, and practitioners engage them in order to perform this surgery on their children, which, unlike any other surgery I'm aware of in U.S. hospitals, it removes a healthy, unique organ part, actually with the exception of intersex genital modification, which it bears a lot of resemblance to in my mind. It removes a healthy part of the body. It's not used as a treatment. Doctors don't think they're treating the children. They know that it's a social surgery they're performing. It has significant complications. It's performed on minors who can't give consent. It's illegal. It's actually a federal felony to perform it on girls, but it's actually encouraged to perform on boys. It results in lifelong function loss, and the tissue is then used commercially.
And so when I first Googled circumcision in 2012, the conversation has changed in 6 years. I know, because I've been paying attention. But 6 years ago, the general consensus was, between all news sources, ABC, NBC, Time, New York Times, Washington Post, Scientific American, and so on, was that circumcision was cleaner, healthier, prevented STDs and HIV, and was endorsed by the Scientific Academy, the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, this sounded great. It created a coherent narrative in my mind. If circumcision was good for you, then of course I and all my friends were circumcised, obviously. However, I stumbled across a website that aggregated quotes about circumcision throughout all time, and something struck me about the Jewish ones. Let me show you. See if you can strike a pattern. Circumcision is a symbol of two things necessary to our well-being: the excision of sexual pleasure and to check a man's pride. 30 AD. The bodily pain is the real purpose of circumcision. One of the reasons is to bring about a decrease in sexual intercourse and a weakening of the organ. The fact that circumcision reduces sexual pleasure is undeniable. 1180 AD. Okay, well, these are ancient history. The foreskin represents man's worst animal-like urges. I like my animal-like urges. Impairment of sexual sensation is a special virtue of circumcision. 1985. Not too long before I was born.
Okay, so I want to make sure you see all of that. So this whole concept of circumcision, it didn't start with the Jews, because these Jewish people, they actually got that from, it goes like as far back as Rome, and even goes even further back to Babylon. Okay. And so it should make you think for a moment, okay, if circumcision is supposedly a sign of holiness and being set apart, then why the heck is the United States at one time? Because the United States is not really leading in that. It's kind of it's decreased over the years. But why is it mandatory in these sinful nations? It's because, again, going back to these Jewish people, again, look at what's on the screen again. This is a practice that they meticulously pushed over the years. And this is a foundational part of what we call today Judaism. And so he's going to get into it a little bit, but this was something that not only was designed to reduce the man, so to speak, but also have a direct impact on the woman. So something was taken away with this thing that we call the foreskin. All right. So let me go ahead and let him continue to talk.
Now, these quotes didn't quite sync with the mainstream narrative. Was circumcision good for me, or did it damage my sexuality? Now remember, I was a 20-year-old male at the time. Not many things were more important to me than the health of my penis. And that still applies today.
If we go back far enough, what we find is that fathers were circumcising their children, not ritually in the Jewish style, but as a sacrifice to whatever deities they were sacrificing to at the time. As a matter of fact, some scholars have given us pretty good evidence that circumcision may have evolved as a substitute for child sacrifice. How did it become a Jewish ritual is the question. There you have to look at the Bible, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, in which the creator of the universe appears to a 99-year-old man named Abraham, tells him that he will be able to impregnate his elderly 90-year-old wife, and that their children will give rise to a tremendous nation. However, he says, you must cut the flesh of your foreskin. What happened at first was a fairly simple removal of the front part of the foreskin and no more. It was only later that practice evolved further, first because Jewish men during the Hellenistic period wanted to perform in athletic contests naked, and they didn't want to seem to be circumcised, so they pulled the remaining foreskin back, what's now called restoration. They pulled the remaining foreskin back and clipped it actually in front so as to have a normal-looking penis again. In order to stop them from doing that, the rabbis then instituted a second phase they called priyah, which meant removing the rest of the foreskin and removing it, a much more radical procedure. It's important to understand that because the kind of circumcision that is performed in Jewish ritual is essentially identical to what is done in the United States. This very radical and very destructive kind of circumcision in which practically all of the foreskin is removed.
So, the story begins 12,000 years ago. Sigmund Freud surmised that circumcision started as a step down from child sacrifice. So instead of sacrificing the child, you would just sacrifice an essential part of him, his genitals. Now these genital blood sacrifices eventually lessened until just parts of his genitals were sacrificed, his foreskin. Now, many people erroneously believe, if you can believe it, many people erroneously believe something, but many people erroneously believe that circumcision started in the Old Testament, the Jewish Holy Book. Actually, Judaism adopted circumcision from tribes circumcising in the area. But if we take a look at the Holy Covenant in Genesis, we can see what it has to say. Every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised. Whether born or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. Any uncircumcised male will be cut off from his people. Now, a couple things to notice here. Every baby must be circumcised, and slaves too, because that was cool at the time. And if you weren't, you were cut off from your people, which was tantamount to a death sentence in ancient times. Now, Leonard Glick, who is a Jewish man with a medical degree and a PhD in cultural anthropology with a specialty in genital cutting, assures me that this is not even the original covenant. It was appended to the Bible in 500 BC for two reasons. Now, the first reason is the child is circumcised when he is a baby, so he has absolutely no choice in the matter. This forever forces him to look Jewish. Now, this promotes tribal cohesiveness, a primary objective of all tribal leaders, as they have a vested interest to maintain the social order of the tribe as they enjoy their status at the top of it. Now, the second reason is a little more interesting and plays to the underlying psychology behind genital cutting cultures. But let's use a modern-day example: fraternity hazing. Who here thinks that hazing is just a malicious exercise of power? A fair number. See, that's not exactly correct. See, hazing is an effective strategy if you want your fraternity to survive. See, hazing plays to an underlying psychological mechanism that enables group survival. See, what we do as humans is we ascribe value to the pain or suffering we endure as the price we pay to join a group or tribe. See, if you're just let into the fraternity, you could easily think, nah, and leave. However, after paying a great price in blood, sweat, tears, and body parts, you know it must be valuable. See, Judaic circumcision operates under that same psychological principle. See, ancient Judea was, and still is to a certain extent, an intensely patriarchal society. Male blood represented salvation, female blood represented filth, men ran everything. And nothing was more important to a man than his patriarchal lineage. And nothing represented his patriarchal lineage more than his son. Or even more specifically, his son's penis. So, to be accepted into this fraternity, the Jewish Brotherhood, fathers, likely younger than you, and far less educated, since this was thousands of years ago, were literally hazed into cutting off parts of their son's penis. You think college hazing is a problem? Circumcision is the most extreme form of hazing on the planet. And if you didn't do it, you were cut off from your people, which was effectively a death sentence. Yeah, we're going there. Now, Leonard Glick does a great job of summarizing circumcision in ancient Judea in his book. He says, in summary, the father offers his son's foreskin as a bloody sacrifice for what may have been a substitute for child sacrifice. He acknowledges, for what may have been he declares acknowledgement of paternity, readiness to submit the child to a perilous procedure, avowal of sexual restraint of his own and his son in the future, and intention to raise him as a conforming member of the male-centered collective, and in summary, offers his submission to the elder's will. Whoa. Do you understand what this means? See, contrary to the popular narrative, circumcision was designed to mark us like cattle. Circumcision was designed to emasculate us like slaves. Circumcision was designed to damage us like we're not even human. That is what circumcision was designed to do. And all this talk about circumcision is not even the circumcision you'd recognize today. See, Judaism underwent an overhaul around 200 AD during a diasporic period. It was called the Rabbinic period, as rabbis redid everything to accommodate the needs of a more dispersed population. Now, when rabbis were redoing everything, they redid, you guessed it, the covenant of circumcision as well. See, around 200 AD, Jews didn't want to be circumcised back then either. So, what they would do is they would take their remnant foreskin and stretch it over the head of their penis, and over a period of time, they would look uncircumcised like a Gentile. Now, this allowed Jews of ancient Greece to better fit in with their Gentile peers, as many social events were done in the nude, whether they be public spas or athletic events or whatnot. Now, undoing the Holy Covenant was anathema to rabbinic authority. So rabbis took revenge. Rabbis took revenge. And to take their revenge, they radicalized the circumcision ritual, from just cutting off the overhanging tip of the foreskin to ablation of the entire tissue. So, the new circumcision ritual, the one that stands to this day, goes like this. And it's called the bris milah, which means the covenant of cutting.
Circumcision became the major symbol of difference for Christians between Judaism and Christianity. This dates back to Paul's letters, Galatians, Corinthians, and others. He says specifically there that circumcision does not matter.
It was so amazing to me when I worked in the hospital. And my first question would be, I see that you're going to have the baby circumcised. And may I ask why you've chosen circumcision for your baby? And they would say, oh, because I'm a Christian. And I said, do you know that there's 120 references to circumcision in the New Testament? Circumcision is of no value. If you're a Christian, you don't live by outward signs. You live by faith expressed through love. Christ was the last to shed the blood. He was the ultimate blood sacrifice for everybody. We don't need to do this again. Oh, I didn't know that.
People are not just Christians, they are Americans, and circumcision is an American procedure.
They're practicing something because they consider they're this, without ever really understanding what that means.
The next question that we come to is, how in the world did this get to become an American custom? In Victorian England in the late 19th century, there was already well embedded the belief that masturbation was a particularly dangerous business. That loss of semen would weaken a child permanently, might give him all kinds of sickness. They said, we can stop this very dangerous habit by performing circumcision.
We know that circumcision began in England to prevent masturbation.
Masturbation was seen as this horrible thing that could cause all kinds of diseases and insanity.
And that just took hold. You know, we are a fairly prudish culture.
And it sounds crazy to us today, but in those days, this was accepted.
Doctors in the 1860s and 1870s claimed that this would reduce the child's sexual sensation. But then in the 1960s, it began to disappear as an idea. Can you guess why? Because the sexual revolution made having sexual pleasure permissible for the first time, basically, in American culture. And so all of a sudden, the meme, the theme that you were damaging your child sexually was no longer good advertising. So it just simply went, bing, it disappeared. And now if you talk to physicians, they will claim utterly that circumcision is not sexually damaging, that it's sexually neutral, and that there's no harm in it. And they forget entirely the medical history they have in their own occupation that claimed exactly the opposite for over 100 years.
Now, how did we get here, right? So it's become a medical practice rather than a tribal practice or a cultural practice. And that came about in the late 1800s when people had not the germ theory of disease, but the nervous excitation theory of disease. And they also had the Victorian morality. So people see what they expect to see a lot of the time. So you can find a lot of published medical literature showing that circumcision cured things like paralysis and epilepsy and hip joint disease and all sorts of problems that today seem very unlikely for the process to have cured. And people really thought that actually the intention was to harm the genitals of children. And they thought that that would help them in the long term because it would prevent them from having so much sexual excitation. That in the Victorian model being the most dangerous kind of nervous excitation you could have.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot there, and that's why I said that documentary. I have his video because what I'm working off of is a file that has all these documentaries put together. I don't have his. His is like a little over a half an hour. I'll put his up there. You'll have that one as well. But there's a lot of information there. But I will say this though. So for those of us who have been circumcised, what that really is a ritual, is a Judaic ritual that we went through. So we were ritualized through Judaism to their gods. And notice I say gods, plural. So again, if you have been scarred by circumcision, and I'm talking about, today's topic is really dealing with the male circumcision. We were very aware of female circumcision as well, but we're talking about male. Every time when you look at that circumcision mark, what you're looking at is a mark of Judaism. I really want that to sink in. All right. And so we have been around Judaism before. And it started when you were a baby. All right. So let's see, 2049. Here we go. Let me go ahead and play this clip here. He's going to be talking about some of the people who were proponents for circumcision. One of them is someone that meets some of y'all for breakfast every morning. Let's take a listen.
I guess the billion-dollar question is, how did we go from a Jewish blood sacrifice to a Gentile medical procedure? Seems like a stretch, right? So, as college humor was actually spot on. See, 19th century doctors actually believed that sexual pleasure, especially masturbation, was not only evil, but the root of all physical and mental illness. And it was always well known that the foreskin was highly erogenous and facilitated masturbation, so the only reasonable course of action was to forcibly circumcise children. Now, if we take a look at the medical literature in the 19th century, here we can see a treatise on venereal diseases of the sexual system. Now, if we take a look, the author didn't even include illustrations of genitals in his textbook because he didn't want people masturbating to the pages. It looks like it may not have worked. Now again, college humor, spot on. One of the primary advocates of dick docking was Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, the inventor of cornflakes. Surreal, isn't it? Now, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg wrote a widely read book in the 19th century titled Treatment for Self-Abuse, also known as Masturbation, and Its Effects. And in this book, he advocated using carbolic acid to burn the clitoris, training kids to chastity cages, and tying them up so they couldn't touch their genitals. He also advocated circumcision in small boys, and that it should be performed without anesthesia, so the child forever associates sexual pleasure with pain. Do you understand how sordid that is? Do you understand how sordid that is? To make things even more surreal, Sylvester Graham, the inventor of graham crackers, also advocated circumcision to prevent masturbation, claiming a masturbator becomes a confirmed and degraded idiot with livid and shriveled countenance and emaciated and dwarfish body, covered in running blisters and sores. And if we take a look at the medical literature in the 19th century, we can see what they thought an actual masturbator looked like. As you can see, it looks nothing like me. Now, I like that joke too. Now, if we were to take a representative sampling of circumcision advocates throughout the 20th century, almost all are vehemently anti-masturbation. For example, Abraham Wilbur's, who didn't even have the courtesy to invent a shitty snack, claiming, circumcision is an absolute necessity for the continuing welfare of the human race. Sound like religious fanaticism to you? He also advocated the forced sterilization of any adult caught masturbating. Or Alan Guttmacher, the president of Planned Parenthood and the vice president of the American Eugenics Society.
All Jews.
Because those were hand in hand in the 1940s. Claiming routine circumcision does not necessitate handling of the penis. Therefore, masturbation is considered less likely. Parents Magazine, widely read stuff. Or even in the medical literature, Campbell's Urology, a gold standard urological textbook, claiming parents are ready to adopt measures which may avert masturbation. Circumcision is usually advised on these grounds. 1970. Do you know what it means if this type of medical rhetoric was in the medical literature in the 1970s? It means that if you were circumcised in the 90s, like I was, it's very possible that our urologists learned that we should be circumcised to keep us from masturbating. Now, these Puritan attitudes are not ancient history. They affect us every single day of our lives.
Okay, so let me go ahead to the 30 minute mark here. And okay, so now this part here is going to be quite challenging. I'm just letting you know ahead of time, and he'll let you know. Okay, but we do need to play this. It's not showing in all gore and all that because they do blur things out. But he's going to be explaining and talking about the procedure. Now, a couple of things too before we get to that. You notice the the procedure, the medical procedure that's referred to, the name of the medical procedure for circumcision that they more commonly use, it's Jewish. What's the name of it? I can't. It's back, but it's a Hebrew word. Hebrew. In the medical world, you referred to that. I have a slide. I think I have a slide. Yeah, I have a slide. I'll bring it up, but I have a slide with all the names on it. Hebrew, because it came from the Hebrews. Okay, and he showed you the quote from the Jewish man who said that what circumcision really is, it's a replacement for child sacrifice. So many of us who have been circumcised unknowingly to our parents, who didn't know any better, and for some of us who have also had our children go through this, we were taking part unknowingly to a child sacrifice under Judaism. And we're marked, that scar is with us permanently. All right, let me go ahead and play this again. Now he's getting into the procedure and what takes place when a child is circumcised. Okay, all right, let's go.
Committed to the old position, and as a matter of fact, before we even had our first meeting, said I ain't going to change my mind.
So, how do we do a circumcision? The next bits are going to be the most graphic. This is a circumcision restraint. They strap the baby down to it. And then they proceed with the procedure, which I'm going to show you a short video of. This is going to include sound, if I've hooked it up correctly. And again, you're welcome to not look at it. I find this uncomfortable.
Okay, he's going to have his say in this in just a moment. But family, this is what they go through now. As a parent who's had two children, I'm talking about Nicole and I, but many of you who've had children as well. And when they're little babies, you can tell the difference between, we know all about the, waking up in the middle of the night, they want something to eat or they want to be held or whatever. And you could tell the difference in the cry and the intensity of the cry. If it's like they crying and there is a hungry cry, usually the parents are like, oh, who gonna get them next? Okay, who we gonna? You just kind of take your time and go. But when they start crying where it's an emergency, it's something to the tenor of their cry that you don't know how you got to their room, but you got there. You done jumped over so many things to get there, but you got there because you could tell something is way wrong. And it's an instinct that's in us as parents that we know the difference. They may not be able to talk our language yet. They may not be able to do that. But even in the cry, the tenor of their cry, back to the frequency thing again, we can tell something is off, way off. And see, this demonic medical system, they know this. This is why for our child, what they did, and I'm sure for those of you who've had sons as well, what did they do? They didn't do it in front of you. They take him off, way off into some other room. You never hear any of this. And they just do what they need to do. Because they know if they were to do it within where you were in proximity and you heard it, you will be tearing, that whole hospital will be burnt down, but you'll be walking out there with your child. So this is what you're seeing. This is what this happens every day. Every day. They do this. And this is, again, a Jewish ritual. Right? Let's go on. Let them talk now.
Okay, so I want to encourage you to take a deep breath if you've been having trouble breathing, like I have during that. And some things I think to notice are the sort of calm detachment of the physician's voice. So the physician is not at all distressed by this. And the way the baby's crying, I hear the baby's crying as the way I hear babies cry when they're in extreme duress, not, I'm hungry.
Currently, the benefit to risk ratio of certain.
Okay, so that's that part there. Okay, so now let me scroll into 44, the 44-minute mark here. And in one of these videos, they talk about the different instruments that they use. And I couldn't find that, unfortunately, but I'll just stop here. But this is what it looks like here, the board that they have the baby laying on typically. They have them strapped down like that. We raise all kind of hell about the terrorists and stuff and how they got on waterboard. And this happens every day. Every day. All right, so let's see, 44. I'm still trying to get to it. And this is a mother. She was talking, just talking. Okay, so you're only going to hear, and what she had to say was pretty good. But I'm just going to start it from this point, okay?
To your son, and then learning that it was wrong.
It's time for our culture to stop being complacent about circumcision. It's time to go out and be part of that ethical correction. So thank you very much.
Well, we went into the doctor. She did this circumcision, and his penis was fine before that. I heard him scream, which was horrible. So I tried to get in there, but they had locked the door. And once she allowed me to go in, she said that he had a concealed penis. Well, what I didn't know until recently is that it was a botched circumcision. I had told her that he looked normal before. And she just said that basically I didn't know what I was talking about because she does this every day.
At what point did you start to realize that this was something the doctor had done rather than something he was born with?
Yesterday. I knew something was wrong all along, but I knew yesterday when I was watching the speakers. During Marilyn, she was showing these slides. I saw my son's penis on there, concealed penis, and she said that it was a botched circumcision.
What happens here is either the doctor has removed too much tissue of the foreskin.
And that's when I realized what had happened, and it was a really hard day for me. I haven't had a day that hard in a long time. I realized that I did something to my son I shouldn't have done. Some men feel like it is as bad as being raped. How could I have done that to my son? What if he feels that way one day? I didn't have the right to do that to him. And I didn't know until I went to the No Circ conference yesterday.
Yes, some of these are disturbing, but until we really see what circumcision is and its impact upon humans, while these things may not happen very often, if it's you, it's significant.
There's not a single state in the U.S.
Then let me scroll to have another story, just a very short one here. This is at 102. Here, this young man, he was just talking about his experience with it. This woman here, she's just sharing the same thing. When she heard that scream, she said it just completely she was like, that's it, I'm done. Explaining the procedure. Okay, all right.
You know, maybe we shouldn't do this to our child. That's pretty barbaric.
When my mother took me and we were walking into this home, this long and dark hallway, it was the strangest feeling I had. It's like I felt chills all over my body, I felt cold. And I knew something bad was going to happen. And when I asked my mother where she was taking me, and she said, yeah, I'm getting you a gift, and it's time to become a woman. And then I saw a young girl who was being taken out of one of the rooms. Maybe she was 7, I'm not sure, who couldn't even cry because her voice was stuck inside. And that's I knew. I just knew that I'm going to be one of those girls. In Europe, I was like, never happened to all these women, no. So I started investigating and realizing that we have to speak against it. So I felt like I have to use my own private pain, my own wound to heal others. Meryl and I became friends, and she said, you should come to my house. So I came here to her house, and she showed me a video. Young boy who was having the circumcision done. She didn't say anything. She just put that tape on. Same thing I saw myself. The way they tied her wrists and legs, tiny, on that table. And the cry. I was there already when I was walking to that hallway, sitting and laying down on that table. That pain, it was me crying. And then when I saw what he was doing, the doctor, how he was pushing things up and cutting the foreskin, I lost it. I just was like, this is mutilation. How can in America we keep fighting about the rights of girls and we're not saying anything about this? I don't like anyone hurting a child, so I'm against both male and female. I am a human rights worker, an activist. That means all rights of children. I cannot select one side and say, I don't hear your cry.
So this is the section on the child. The procedure for the child, we'll run through what the procedure looks like. That's probably the most graphic section, along with the complications. And what I want you to think about is, it's oftentimes talked about from the parent's perspective. Parents have a right to choose. I want you to question that discourse and think about, what's the child's point of view? Who owns the child's body? What rights do they have? Why are we doing it to boys and not girls? What's that say about our view of gender? And so on. So, this slide shows 3 different representations of people in the genital cutting process. The top left is a young girl being circumcised in a culturally, in her cultural scenario. The top right is a young boy being circumcised in his cultural scenario, and the bottom right is a young infant boy in a hospital in the U.S. And what I want you to do is look at their faces. Just look at their faces, because I'm asking you to think about their experience, and to me, it looks like they're having a very similar experience. And yet, in our culture, I see us as being kind of imperialist. We're very ready to point the finger and say, oh, these terrible things these people do in these other countries where they practice female genital cutting. We're silent about the male genital cutting that occurs to children under the same conditions of hygiene and the same death rates in those countries. And we promote doing it to boys in this country. So I ask people, how do they know that female genital cutting is so awful and male genital cutting is so fine? And they don't have any answer. It's not like they've actually gone and talked to someone who had experienced female genital cutting. They just...
Okay, so yeah, I like the fact that they're bringing in the fact about the female genital, even though this is mainly dealing with male. But yeah, I mean, the female genital cutting isn't something it's not encouraged, at least in this country, in the United States. It does happen, but on a much, much smaller scale. But nonetheless, you can only imagine it's a very painful procedure. And what you're going to hear a little bit later on is how these procedures are the reason why when they're done to children, infants, it's a belief that children do not feel pain, that babies don't feel pain. That's what they believe, these crazy people. Let me see, explain the procedure. Okay, so this part here now is you saw that part of it. Now they're going to explain what happens psychologically. Now, this part is extremely, extremely, extremely important.
My.
This is extremely important for you to hear this. because you need to see the connection. Because, see, it's not just what they did down there, but what was set in motion. And I believe that as we go through this, people are going to be, we're going to see healing come out of this for real. And I'm talking about mentally, emotionally. There's healing that's going to take place ultimately. But we got to first understand what are these things. And brothers, I want you to listen to. You're going to hear some things, what took place, and you got a little hint of it. And I may go back to that clip where the woman was talking earlier. What happens, to your how you process things when they mess around with things down there. So let me scroll on here. This is 107. Let me go to that. And I know we're going longer than normal, but we're going to need to get this. Okay. So 107:53. Okay. So let me see this whole documentary. By the way, these documentaries have a lot of stuff in it. I'm only giving you, trust me, even though there's a lot, trust me, there's a lot more on here than I just don't have because of time. All right. So let me go ahead and play this part here.
There have been a lot of studies on circumcision. Quite a few of them have studied the pain. Until the mid-'80s, medical doctors generally believed that newborn infants did not feel pain. They were actually doing abdominal surgery on infants as old as 15 months without anesthesia. And then what happened was some parents learned about this and complained about it.
A woman on the East Coast had a baby who had open heart surgery without an anesthetic. The mother got in touch with Anand and Hickey, and Anand then did this work. The idea was, do babies feel pain, and could they document whether they did or not? Of course, they did, and it turned out that the younger the baby, the more exquisitely the pain is felt.
When that result was published in 1987, it was concluded that, yes, newborn infants can feel pain. I mean, what's amazing about this, again, the baby's crying, but medical doctors are not sensitive to nonverbal responses to pain.
It took the American Academy of Pediatrics years for them to acknowledge the pain in babies. About 50% of boys are being anesthetized. That was the latest figure I heard.
Previously, it was thought babies don't feel pain. We don't have to use local anesthesia. Even they scream, but they scream if they're wet, if they're hungry, and so on like that, and they get over it very quickly. So, but now it's standard procedure.
The anesthesia is not always effective, and it doesn't eliminate all the pain.
The topical is the least effective, and the ring block, when it works, is the most effective, but it takes 4 injections into the penis, which hurts.
The procedure is painless. I mean, nowadays, if you see somebody that's a real...
He's a sick one.
Very often the baby sleeps through the procedure.
Well, sometimes infants appear to be sleeping through a circumcision, and that's an interpretation of adults. What's actually happening is the baby is withdrawing and a traumatic shock. This is the only thing they can do. They can't escape physically, so they'll escape psychologically. The idea that infants don't remember pain is another one of those cultural myths.
Yes, the pain can be remembered. There's a study by Taddeo many years ago who looked at the response to immunization.
One group of these babies being vaccinated responded so dramatically to pain, they said, what the heck is this about? And they went to see, what were the differences? Were they breastfed versus bottle fed? Were they held more? No, it was the boys who'd been circumcised that responded hysterically to the vaccination or responded much more dramatically to the pain.
And the investigators explain this by saying this is a result of neurological effects from the circumcision and a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay, so right here, what they were talking about, what happens here, now, like I said, this part is very important because what they were explaining here, again, is that a baby, this is an infant, okay? So first of all, we heard the screams, right? Infants don't normally scream like that. That infant was screaming like it was much, much older. But with everything within it, it was screaming. It was like, help. That's basically what that child was screaming. And that's why they separate, the parent. I already went through that. But then they talked about this in this clip here. They talked about how the child can only do one or two things. they're either going to scream and say, help, I need help, or they're just going to say, you know what, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to lay here. And see, remember what we talked about earlier, what happens, when someone's being sodomized and that imprint that's taking place, right, neurologically. Well, it's the same thing that's happening here. They're not being sodomized, but the way a child reacts to that, they remember that. It's imprinted because, again, you're dealing with an emotional, a very, 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 very intensive trauma that early in life. The mother's arms are supposed to be the most safest place for a child, not a child with half the skin being ripped off. And so what's happening, that trauma, again, that what they call that a crump. What's the Hollywood people into with the blood and all of that?
Oh, what is that called?
Yeah, it starts with an A. Some of them may know it, but it's a chrominone or something like that. But basically, what it is that they take the blood of children,
adrenal zone or something like that.
It's something like that, where they take the blood of children that have been, heightened, either mostly through trauma,
through fear and pain,
and then take it and then they do whatever they're going to do with it, whatever they magic and stuff with it. Well, they're doing the same thing here, family. The foreskin that's cut off, they take that and they sell it to the pharmaceutical companies, or that's what they say. They don't just toss that in the trash. It's valuable. It's very, very valuable. Adrenochrome. Thank you, Carissa.
Thank you, Carissa. Yeah, that's it.
So this child is being, at this juncture, is either going to repress, or they just going to fight. One of the two. And so that goes all throughout their childhood, and it carries through their adulthood as well. And it has a direct direct correlation between that and self-confidence. The self-confidence of a child. You think about, brothers, some of the times that you've been around in situations where your self-confidence has been, you wonder why your self-confidence was so low. In many cases, it ties to this, what took place there, what was imprinted on you. Okay.
One second, y'all.
And you can keep on. I'm just scrolling through. All right, so I'm still trying to get something up here. Hold on.
This is a lot to process, y'all. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to process. So we're gonna, I'm sure, like he said, it'll be multiple weeks on this, and we'll just take it slow. One quick thing as you're going to the next thing, Dwayne. I know for me, so far what I've heard, one thing I'm gonna go back and look at. One of the historians, I think he was a historian, I'm not sure, on here, how he said, the historian said that circumcision was added to Genesis 17 in around 500 BC. That he said it was appended to the Bible, and that this was not the original sign of the covenant that the Father made with Abraham in Genesis 17. Now that I'm going to look into that. I'm going to take a look, and I want to look into that. And then he also said that, or one of them said around 200 AD, what they call the rabbinic period, that the Jews did an overhaul of circumcision and decided to cut not the tip of the foreskin, but that whole, like how modern circumcision is done, and how they, even back in 200 AD, they upped the amount of skin that they removed, and that's what you see in modern circumcision. That's what he mentioned.
Now I'm gonna play this. This clip is a lot longer, but maybe I'll just play a little bit of it because I want to jump back because what you had mentioned, we actually played it earlier. But I'm a go back to this clip from the other woman in a little bit, and then that's all for the clips, okay? And then we're gonna wrap it up, okay? But let me play a little bit of this. This is talking about the impact, sensory impact on this, okay?
Like I said, I've talked with hundreds of parents, especially doing all this work that I do with parents. I've talked with many who, when they receive their child back, that's the moment at which they understand what they had signed up for. And so there's a problem with informed consent, both that the information is lacking and that parents are sometimes asked about it at an inconvenient moment, like such as when they're in labor, you know. And they're also asked about it in this sort of values neutral way. It's like, you know, would you like a pillow? Would you like a cup of tea? Would you like your child circumcised? You know, it carries the same sort of tone, you know. And I'm concerned about that. So I view us as having this sort of manufacturing pseudo-informed consent process where parents need to trust physicians. They're the people the physicians are supposedly the ones who are bringing in the discipline of medicine. And so they come in, but they're given this information that is very cursory. It lacks real information about the complications. Those are trivialized. The foreskin functions are completely omitted. It's not mentioned that it's actually a sexual organ. And the ethical questions of making decisions about your children's bodies are omitted. And there's also this undeclared conflict of interest. There's really a lot of commercial use of the tissue. So the other thing parents don't know.
Okay, so he gets into some other stuff here. Like I said, I'm trying to, you know, cut off some of the things that we don't need to, we can talk about. You know, you can get from the either watching the documentaries yourself, or we'll break it down. You know, next week we'll do more of a breakdown on all of this stuff here. Let me pull this up here real quick here because I want to make sure that I don't forget anything here. Let's see. Let's go back to this. Okay, so I went there. Okay, so again, so you guys remember that that's the slide, you know, with all the people, the Jewish people and what they had to say on it. Okay, and that was another one. Okay, this is the one right here. What it's called, the type of the 3 types of circumcisions. Okay, the one is called, this is Hebrew. Okay, the Hebrew language, right? They call it milah, or cutting. Mohel amputates the part of the foreskin that extends over the glands. All right. Periah, or tearing. Moel, or moray. Anyway. Okay, now check this part out. Sheds entire genital mucosa with sharpened fingernails. So they actually use a sharpened fingernail to cut it off.
Like a claw.
That's another one. It's called periah. And this last one is called metzitzah. And you guys have seen, I'm sure of that. I'm definitely playing that. The moel, or moray, sucks on the baby's bleeding penis. All right. That's what they do. All right. So this slide right here, and then I'm pretty much, well, I'm going to say this, and then there's a couple other things I do want to hit real quick, and then we're done. Okay, circumcision performed, because we didn't really get into all the things that are the things that are lost when you cut that foreskin. That foreskin has a lot in it. It's a lot in it, okay? And it's not just sexual, all right? And, okay, so let me just read this. Circumcision performed during infancy disrupts the bonding process between the child and mother. There are indications that the innate sense of trust in intimate human contact is inhibited or lost. It can also have significant adverse effects on neurological development and cause a host of problems with breastfeeding and attachment development. Additionally, an infant's self-confidence and hardiness is diminished by forcing the newborn victim into a defensive psychological state of, quote, learned helplessness, unquote, or acquired passivity to cope with the excruciating pain which he can neither fight or flee. Okay. The trauma of this early pain lowers a circumcised boy's pain threshold below that of an intact boys or girls. Intact basically means boys or girls who haven't been circumcised. This has been proven in a study during vaccination times, and they give the sources there. And then next paragraph, it says, every year, some boys lose their entire penises from circumcision accidents and infections. They are then sexually reassigned by castration and transgender surgery and are expected to live their lives as females. Now, there's many. Now, the reason why you don't hear all those stories, because they talked about this as well. This is a very, very common thing. The reason why you don't hear about it is because they don't track it. There's nothing at all like the CDC. They don't even track it. It's not a trackable thing.
So women, they're saying that they make a mistake and cut off the entire penis by accident. And then they basically do the inverted situation and basically say this is a baby
They
girl.
may either do an inverted or, depending on the parent, or they will, make it, they'll try to, with the skin that's left, they'll try to make a little something. And so this is why, it's said jokingly a lot when people say, well, he got penis envy. That's not just a saying. That comes from the fact that you have people out there, real men out here, whose penises have been so mutilated by this process that it's horrible. In fact, what was his name? What's the producer in Hollywood that had all the sex charges against him? The big one, the Jewish guy.
I don't remember his name.
Not Jeff Epstein. The other one, whatever. But
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein is one of them. They said his stuff was so mutilated, and from the multiple accounts of women. But this is a very common thing. And let me go in. Every year, many boys in the United States and elsewhere lose their lives as a result of circumcision, a fact that is routinely ignored and obscured. More U.S.-born boys in the neonatal period of infancy die as a result of circumcision complications than from SIDS, car accidents, crib accidents, suffocation, or choking. And then it ends with, the human foreskin represents 1/3 to 1/2 the complete penis at birth and in early childhood, and plays an important part in normal sexual functioning in adulthood. And like I said, for the sake of time, I'm just going to have to just kind of summarize the other things. Now, if you saw that picture that we showed you earlier with the penis, the uncircumcised penis, just to kind of give you an understanding, number one, there's numerous accounts of people who say sex with a circumcised penis versus sex without it is a difference between seeing the world in black and white versus color. It's a world of difference. And, we can get into the spiritual aspect of that in a moment. But functionality of it is, like I said, the best way to explain it is by having that whole covering on the penis, it reduces the amount of friction within the woman's vaginal area. So a lot of times when women will say, hey, listen, when you may complain about pain that you may feel during sex, and it's wasn't never designed for you to feel pain like that in the first place. The way the Most High designed the male's penis is for us to take on more of that friction within that complete sheath, so to speak. And so what these wicked people did is cut that part off. And by cutting it off, it's putting more friction on the woman. But the other part of that too is, and they showed, like I said, again, I'm skipping some things here, showing you, I'll just tell you, orgasm rate with women via vaginal, just straight vaginal, when you're dealing with a penis that has been circumcised, it's a 30% that a woman would experience orgasm with a penis that has been circumcised.
30% lower, you're saying?
It's 36%. 36% of women or whatever that they polled or whatever said it's, having sex with a man that has circumcised, they reach orgasm at, it's 36% of the women. 30%.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Now, women who have had sex with a male who has not been circumcised, it jumps up to high as 60+% that they will achieve orgasm with a male who has not been circumcised. Why is that important? It's important on many levels, not just the feeling of it, but now you get into the whole spirituality part of it. And what they were talking about, it brings together a sense of closeness. You know what I mean? There's more of a sense of closeness. So when you take that away from the man, what then has to happen? In some cases where women then have to turn to other devices or other things in order to reach that heightened moment that is supposed to be shared experience when the man and the woman are the closest together.
The two flesh are supposed to become
when the two
one.
flesh become one. And what that has done is by the circumcision, you remove that part, and now you're creating division, you're creating separation in a moment that is a high spiritual instant in time.
Joining. Yeah, as if it's a, go ahead.
And then the last thing is going back to I'll just mention it. I'll just mention it because I played it already. I'm not going to go back because I want you to, give what you want to say. Going back to the older woman that I played earlier, Miss Janice or Janice, what she was saying again is when that part is removed from the penis, what happens is the male, when it comes to self-control, that ability of pausing, of self-control when it comes to things such as pornography. Let's go back. Let me take this back a little bit further because I forgot to mention this. When Adam was in the garden, the Most High brought him his woman. Now, this woman, we pretty much know was very beautiful, a very, very beautiful woman for him. And he was just so impressed and blown away by it. She didn't have a stitch of clothes on her. And you don't read anything at all in scripture where as soon as he saw this woman buck naked, didn't have any clothes on, you didn't see anything at all. He was like, you boning my, man, listen, let's just go to the hay and let's just get it on. You don't hear anything at all in scripture with him. The first thing he did, he jumped and went to have sex with that woman. You don't hear anything about that. He saw her for who she was and he prophesied over her. If you see a butt naked woman, listen, and she's beautiful too, I don't think prophecy is going to be the first thing that's going to come in most men's mind. I'm talking about real men now. I don't think you're going to be thinking about prophecy. Okay, you be thinking about laying of hands, but you ain't going to be thinking about prophecy. Okay, you ain't going to be thinking about prophecy at that moment. But Adam, or the first man, he wasn't thinking, he thought he prophesied to her. And then as we going back to what we talked about before, then after that, what were they doing? They were working and tilling the land. They were tilling the place. So he got this beautiful woman in front of him, and they up here working and they like, okay, first woman, come over here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this. And then you're going to make sure you watch this. And look, her stuff showing and everything. And I mean, just in all full display. And he was able to maintain his full composure and keep it moving and stay focused in tilling the land, taking care of the land and protecting the garden with this woman that's buck naked. And he don't have any clothes on. What was it that caused him to have that level of self-control? It was what was taken during this whole circumcision nonsense. Because what that does, and we'll get into that, next week or whatever, is that there are things that because there's so many thousands and thousands of nerve endings that they have robbed us of that can help. And some of that is tied to things within our bodies, within our brains that give us an ability to have a level of self-control where if you see a naked woman or whatever, you'd be like, yeah, you full of the devil, or you this or that or whatever. You better or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you're dealing with, because you shouldn't be seeing no naked woman anyway unless it's your wife. But I'm just saying, there's a level of self-control that was already pre-wired in us as men. Now we can get that now through his spirit, right? But in the natural, Satan knew you can't corrupt his spirit, but I can corrupt the flesh. And that's exactly what he did. So brothers, this is going back into some of the things that you have dealt with in the past, and maybe some of y'all may be dealing with now. Now you kind of see what some of this stuff is tied to. But thankfully, you can be redeemed. All right. And we're going to look at this from multiple angles. That's why I said we're going to take our time with this, because we're also going to look at herbs and stuff that you can take that will address some of those areas, that can help build you up in some of those areas too, because we want to come out of this whole and complete. Okay. So that was the part that I want. We shared it earlier, but I'm just emphasizing it again, just, in case you missed that part, because that's a very important point. Adam was very focused when he was in the garden. It wasn't one big love sack thing when they were just rolling on the hay all day or whatever. No, they were about the work and they were about the business. And when it was time for them to be fruitful and multiply, then they did that.
It's balance.
You understand? So there you go. So that's it. That's all I have for now. Yeah, you got some notes there. I want to hear from you.
Oh, you actually, I think you said most of it.
Okay.
I think what was very impactful for me when Dwayne was sharing this to me earlier this week was that the foreskin is actually tied to or connected to the thyroid and the adrenal glands. And the foreskin acts as a type of control valve for a man's sexual desire.
Yes.
So when you remove what they're doing today, modern time, and ripping the whole thing off and all that, when you do that, you leave the man almost defenseless to his own sexual desire because that control valve has been removed. And so what she was saying in the video, your adrenal glands, your thyroid, all of that plays into, it's your endocrine system, and it has a huge part in not just your self-control, but your ability to deal with pressure, your ability to deal with stress, your ability to deal with anger. If your adrenals are burned out, you can't deal with stress. You just go off just like that. One thing happens and you just, a basket case. One thing happens and you're suspicious. Oh, they did this, or they stole from me, or this happened, and that person didn't give me my change at the grocery store because I knew that they were trying to steal. It's like, whoa, calm down. That their adrenal glands are burned out.
Yes.
And so also with the man's sexual desire, what you were sharing with me is that the foreskin acts as that control valve. So for me, it was when I think about all of these young men, I have a son, but all of these young men out here who are fighting daily to try to, fighting against lust, fighting against all these things daily. And a lot of times it may seem like a losing battle. And you think, for me as a mother, and many of you are mothers that said yes. Oh, I remember when the nurse came in and said, "Would you like your baby circumcised?" Absolutely, because I'm a good Christian. And they're going to get circumcised.
I was right
today.
there too. I said
they're
it
going to
too.
get circumcised. You understand? And so, but again, Miss Dawn G said something in the chat. She said, and it's part of what we were talking about. She said, man, if the Most High called it good, why would it need to be then cut away? But again, and I'll just go one further. If we're supposed to flee fornication, and we're supposed to resist the devil so he can flee, and we're supposed to, absolutely say no to lust. We're supposed to really resist these different things. The thing that was put on the male part to assist him in doing so, why would a good father then demand that it be removed and leave that man somewhat defenseless against that attack? And one more thing that you told me that one of the medical researchers said, they said that what they find with the Jews, because again, they were looking at Jews being circumcised, is that they're so easily becoming sexual deviants, or easy to become sexual deviants, or their sexual whatever just off the charts. They just have no self-control. Now we can say, okay, well, that's the synagogue of Satan, so on and so forth, but they're literally tying, and it's medically tied. The foreskin is tied to the sexual appetite in terms of men. And so I found all of this to be, it really was very, it caused you to pray. It caused you to be, it's very thought provoking. Again, when we look at the topic of, and I won't talk too much. I know you have something you want to close up with, but basically, you know what? We want truth, period. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, it's, so yeah, that, again, that I think when I played that clip, you were out, because she was talking about that. We played that part too, where she mentioned that about the why Jews were so heavy on this circumcision, because they understood it helped them to be relentless in whatever no self-control. You just relentless. So relentless in pornography, relentless in banking, relentless in whatever it is in the political world. You just go, And so that's what was part of it. And again, so men, that was the other thing I wanted to show you, wanted to mention, is that for many men, many of us who have been through circumcision, you may notice at times, you may have this thing where your penis, it's not normally straight. It may go at an angle, tends to lean to the left, or it may lean to the right. The reason why that's the case is when the doctors cut you, they cut some nerves that were supposed to be in place there in the first place to keep it straight. And so what you're seeing when you see it leaning like that, that's nerve damage. But you see how we've normalized that thing. Oh, that's just how it is or whatever. No, that's nerve damage. So many of you are walking around today with some serious medical damage done to your body, that not only physically, but also, as we just explained today, psychologically. And these devils, they still going around, and they're still telling, now they want to, the latest scam is they want to scare you to take the vaccine. And people still going right along with them. Now, as parents, like I said, this is also especially a lot to take, because, I saw my son last night. I was like, man, listen, I repent. I didn't know, and I didn't know, so I repent. And I said, but we're going to work through this together. We're going to definitely work through this together. And as far as my parents are concerned, I don't feel any kind of way, because they didn't know. You know what I mean? They did whatever. I didn't have a say so in it, whatever. So, but it's water under the bridge right now, so I'm just going to work with what I got. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to keep it moving. So no, I don't feel any kind of way towards my parents like that, but now you have a little knowledge and a little more knowledge about this. This was something that the Most High he's not going to say that you are good, that when he created you, he called you good, but yet that little part on your penis, cut that part off. And he's not going to later on, and then he's going to tell Abram, say, listen, this is something that's going to be a covenant between you and all your peoples. Okay. It's just going to be y'all. That's it. But then you turn around and look through history, and you got Rome and Greece and Egypt. They've been doing it. They're like, y'all catching up to us. We've been doing this. This is a sign to our God. And the other thing is the fact that men, every time when you look down there, if you circumcise, that is a mark of their God. That circumcision mark that's on there, that is, it's no different than the branding that the slave master put on us. It's no different at all. So you've been marked on your body by these Jewish people for dedication to their God. This is why I'm going to say this. And like I said, again, we've been raw enough, but I'm going to continue to just keep it 100%. After hearing all of this and everything else that we've been presenting, you will have to be a stone fool at this point in time to still call yourself a Hebrew. Let me say that again. You will have to be a stone fool after all of this that has been explained and given to you at this time to still consider yourself and to call yourself a Hebrew. You literally have the mark of their gods. That's not the one that we worship, not the real creator of the heavens and the earth. The mark of their demonic gods, the mark of Luciferianism right on your penis. And it has played a role in how you have relations with your wife. Spiritual connections that some of y'all, when I listen to some of y'all, some of the, you say, maybe you and your wife aren't seeing eye to eye, and some of this stuff, it may seem big, but the other people say, y'all just need a little, we just need a little help, we'll get you through it or whatever. Some of that can be traced back to what these people did. Because of the joining. That they disrupted. They disrupted the joining. They disrupted the joining the way the Most High designed it. So you can take that, what I just said, for what it's worth. If you're going to share it with someone, make sure you share the whole video so you get the whole context. And yes, I'll say it again. At this point in time, what has been shared with you and showing how these people methodically, from babies, trying to calculate at what point babies get orgasms, to cutting parts of your penis and marketing, and is basically dedicated to their gods and stuff. It's a replacement for child sacrifice. And you gonna still hold on to that stuff. She done told you, that lady said, listen, any part of it, you need to get out of it. It's a branch of Luciferianism. And I'm gonna tell you this, Hebrew Israelite, Black Hebrew Israelite, whatever you want to call it, it is a branch of Luciferianism. If I was to do a video on YouTube today, I would call Black Hebrew Israelite. Israelite is a branch of Luciferianism. I would say that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now that I know what I know, I don't have nothing to do. I definitely don't have nothing to do with it now. My charge right now is to tell you and to warn you. That's it. And to love you. Okay. Just like the Most High, he will love us parents. We didn't know. You know what I mean? We didn't know at all. We didn't know this stuff, but now we know. And now we could tell our children when they start having children, we can say, hey, listen, stop that. We ain't doing that no more. And see how that works. So there's grace that's there. There's grace, and we thank the Most High for that. And he can bring healing. Okay. So I wanted to play that audio of that baby crying. And I know that's hard. It was hard for me, trust me, in hearing that. But I had to hear that because when I heard that'll never leave me. That will never leave me. Because I know as a parent, and I know you know too, when your baby cries, when it's stress, if it's something major, you don't know how you get to the room, but you get there because that's your baby. Now, how you think the Most High must feel hearing that being played over and over and over and over and over and over again every day, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of times a day? This is a wicked, wicked nation, and these people are wicked. But there's grace, and they take that stuff. Like I said, they take that sheath or whatever, that foreskin, and they sell it to their pharmakia people, and they be doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it. But anyway, I don't want to keep y'all. We've covered quite a bit here, yeah. It was heavy. Like I said again, it's you're gonna have to process it, take some time, pray. And like I said again, we want to have a time where You know, we're going to have our children. We pray in this repentance and healing, you know, what we talked about earlier with the pornography thing, that we want to see, you know, people who've been in any way, shape or form been dealing with pornography, you know, that you get delivered from that. And now that you have a greater understanding of what that does psychologically to your brain and all that, even people who masturbate, same thing, what it does. So anyway, so that's all we have for you. Father, we just thank you again for this time that we had to come together with our brothers and sisters here today as we discuss these matters. Father, we give all of this to you, and we know it's a lot of information, but I am so grateful of the fact that you have found us worthy to share this information with us so that we're able to see this in a fuller perspective than even the presenters that we've shown here today, because they only see one part and another part. But for us, what you have given us, we're seeing a deception and how this is tied into how these wicked people have put this in the Bible, and people have ran with this stuff. And we thank you, Father, that you are setting our minds free. And I pray, Father, that the healings that need to take place, that the process will begin. And as parents, we do repent for participating in this foolishness, this madness. We did not know. But we repent of it. Yes. And we say, create in us a clean heart and renewing us a right spirit. Yes. And we pray, Father, that whatever the negative effects that it has had on our children, that, Father, that you'll reverse the curse. Yes. We thank you, Father, and we give you all the praise.
Yes.
For you are worthy to be praised. Yes, we thank you.
Thank you, Father.
And your son, Isaiah, we pray. Let it be so and done. All right. Well, family, listen. You guys take care of yourself. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get to work and try to get this uploaded ASAP. And I'll get it on. Because this is long, it's going to take quite a bit of time on here on BondTube. But it'll upload a lot quicker on Odyssey. So as soon as it's live on Odyssey, I'll immediately put that on Linktree, and you'll be able to access it from there. But eventually it'll show up on all the other platforms. So, all right, family, listen, you guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your day and evening, and we'll be talking again soon. We love you very much. Take care.